Welcome back to SM Sports Radio, our second episode in our professional-ish setup over here at Utica Baptist Church. Missing our on-site engineer, Stephen Goodrow, today. We had a little bit more trouble setting up both the audio and the visual side, but we're ready to talk about some sports once again this week. A little bit of a SM Sports Radio after dark. If you're thinking of the time that we're actually recording this, I'm not going to divulge the actual time that we're doing this right now.
I am. It's 11:46 p.m. Well, he has a work shift in less than
there
11
you have
hours.
It. There you have it, folks. We are definitely here after dark as a tribute to the fallen Pac-12 and to Bill Walton, who also passed away today. Rest in peace, legend there.
Yes, definitely. But I'm still excited to do this. The energy is still here. We've been playing pickleball for a couple hours, which is probably not the best decision on our part, knowing how long it would take us to set this up. But we finally got here. We're ready to go. And I think Samuel's been putting this off because he's really, really sad right now.
Yeah, so on Sunday afternoon, my favorite player in Major League Baseball, Ronald Acuña Jr., tore his ACL once again. And if you're thinking, oh, he tore his ACL in his right knee again, no, it was his left knee. So now he's going to have two surgically repaired ACLs, probably going to miss, well, he's definitely going to miss the rest of this season. Probably not going to be the same player next season, kind of like we saw from 2021. He wasn't the same in 2022. And then he was unanimous MVP in 2023, so hopefully we follow that track again, and maybe he gets another unanimous MVP in 2026. But just saying that out loud, if that's the best case scenario here, that's a little bit sad. So rest in peace to Ronald Acuña's left knee.
Yeah, really. You hate to see these superstars go down over and over again with these injuries, but it feels like baseball especially, these guys just cannot catch a break from it a lot of the time, as Samuel sits even lower in a moment of recognition for Ronald Acuña's knee. But
flying the flag at half-staff today.
Yes. It's very sad to see this. I personally, obviously, am not a Braves fan, but you love to see all these teams that come in with so much hype at their maximum strength all the time. This is why you watch the games. But Atlanta this year just feels like y'all can't catch a break with injuries. First Strider and now this.
Yeah, and I think that's partially your fault because we've talked about over the past few weeks. We've talked about over the past few weeks. You just reminded me of that. Thanks for that reminder. You picked Strider to win the Cy Young and Acuña to repeat his MVP. That's number one. Number two, we haven't really talked about this on air, but it's kind of been a joke in between us for a while that you have very unfortunate sports luck in general. And I think that after your rant last week, which we'll get into in a second, I think a lot of that was just transitioned over to me. And I think you were partially responsible for Acuña's ACL tear. What do you have to say about that?
The Reds are 5-2 since the rant, and it's so worth it. I never want to see.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I never want to see Ronald Acuña get hurt. I want to make that very clear. But it's nice to see my Reds playing well at least.
Definitely.
And listen, about my sports bad luck, I know we don't talk motor racing, but this past weekend, my favorite F1 driver, Charles Leclerc, it has to get a mention because I called this when almost no one except Max Verstappen wins anymore. Charles Leclerc goes out and wins his home race, the Monaco Grand Prix, after I had called it the week before. So the sports luck is turning around. That happened. I was so happy already. Then the Reds swept the Dodgers. Everything is going right for me once right now. I can't wait for something terrible to happen to completely ruin it, as it usually goes. But I at least had a great Memorial Day sports weekend.
Yeah, let's just give a round of applause to Micah for his big sports weekend. There we go. Shout out to Micah. Glad to see your luck kind of flipping the other way now. And now I see how it feels to just have a little bit of pain because Ronald Acuña goes down. Obviously, the Braves are scuffling still. I mean, Anthony Edwards, my favorite player in the NBA right now, down 3-0 in the conference finals to the Mavericks. By the time you're watching this, the series might be over. I'm kind of going to be operating under the assumption that the Wolves win Game 4 when we get into NBA, but we'll save that for later. Other places around the NL Central. Craig Counsell returned to Milwaukee this weekend, and I don't think Milwaukee was really appreciative of his time there.
No, and I mean, it makes sense to me because the guy was a player for the Brewers, then became their manager, was really kind of the heart and soul of that entire organization in a lot of ways, and then just goes to the Cubs for more money, and they welcomed him back. They had the whole tribute video. It was on the board in American Family Field. The Brewers staff were like, yeah, we're going to welcome him back. It's going to be so nice. And all the fans are like, no. And they booed him almost out of the stadium. It was really crazy. I haven't seen a Milwaukee crowd that fired up, maybe ever, honestly, and it was just to boo Craig Counsell, which, I mean, fair enough. Personally, if the Reds manager left to another team, I would be so happy, especially...
Yeah, I don't think David Bell would get booed if he came back to Great American Ballpark.
If David Bell went to the Cardinals, I would donate money, but Anyway, Craig Counsell doing that, it makes sense. I would say I feel your pain, Brewers fans, but I don't. I'm not a fan of the Brewers.
He rejoices in your pain.
Just know that, Brewers fans. I rejoice in your pain.
If there's a Brewers fan watching out there, we rejoice in your pain over here.
There's not many Brewers fans that don't live in Wisconsin.
True.
But
shout out to Easton Keys, though, if you catch this. I know you're a Brew Crew guy.
Yeah, Easton Keys, man. What a guy.
What a guy, man.
Yeah.
Shout out.
But anyway, over to the other Central Division. Let's talk about the AL Central here with Jose Ramirez. We're having a great time tonight, guys. SN Sports Radio After Dark. This is what you get. But Jose Ramirez recently was intentionally walked to the bases loaded, and after the game, he said he was better than Barry Bonds. Now, I know our good friend Cale Downard is a big Jose Ramirez guy. What do you think? Do you think Jose Ramirez is better than Barry Bonds?
Comment down below if you think Jose Ramirez is better than Barry Bonds.
I can't wait for all the comments agreeing with that. But in all seriousness, I love this from Jose. I find this absolutely hilarious. This is the kind of stuff you wish you would get more from baseball stars, kind of this personality outside of the games. And Jose Ramirez had a couple iconic moments recently with knocking out Tim Anderson for a bit.
So who would you take in a fight night between Barry Bonds and Jose Ramirez? No steroids for Bonds.
I was going to say, is Bonds on steroids?
What would the betting odds be there?
Ooh, if Bonds is not on steroids, I would say give me Jose Ramirez minus 225.
Wow. Steep favorite there.
Well, have you seen Barry Bonds not on steroids? The dude's kind of a stick. Like he's still
pre-steroids definitely was a stick.
Yeah, so if it's no steroids, Barry Bonds versus...
They just set that up after Jose Ramirez retires. I'd like to see that.
You've heard of Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. Yeah. Get ready for Jose Ramirez versus no steroids, Barry Bonds. Coming to pay-per-view near you, only on Prime Video. Or something like that.
Or Peacock or something like that. Who knows?
Pick the streaming service of your choice.
Where does celebrity boxing go on streaming?
I personally could not.
I don't know either.
Is it DAZN? Does it go there?
I don't know what that is.
It's like the DAZN box logo thing.
Perhaps.
Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
We're having a great conversation tonight. But anyway, let's talk about the MLB division standings over here. Try to get some coherence over here. Let's start off in the AL East, where the New York Yankees are still in the lead of the Baltimore Orioles. And how about this murderer's row the Yankees have going on right now? Giancarlo Stanton's hitting really well. Aaron Judge continues to rake, and then Juan Soto's still doing Juan Soto things.
Yeah, so Aaron Judge started off the season pretty dreadfully, and now I think I read correctly that he's leading Major League Baseball in OPS, on-base percentage, and one other stat that is not in my mind right now, but Judge has really turned it around, kind of what I expected as a Braves fan for Acuña to do eventually. Obviously, he will not be doing that as he will be missing the rest of the season, but it's really good to see Aaron Judge getting back to that MVP form because he's one of those guys that baseball is better if he's hitting bombs. I do not want to see him interrupting college football broadcasts for a home run record chase. That really irked me when Clemson played Wake Forest back in the day.
That needs to be a feature on the new EA Sports College Football 25 game. Imagine if you're in a playoff game as your Clemson dynasty. You're playing Ohio State. It's down to the last minute, and then suddenly the game freezes, and you think, oh no, my internet's crashed. But instead it cuts to an excerpt from the show 24, and it's Aaron Judge just hitting a no-doubt home run on some kid. That would be hilarious, but unfortunately EA does not make both of those games. I don't think that would happen anyway, but very entertaining possibility. And Aaron Judge does lead the league in OPS, and then slugging was actually the other category that he's in the lead of right now. But
if he's leading in on base and slugging, he's probably leading in
on base. Mookie Betts is still on base. Yeah.
Maybe it was American League. Maybe it was American League.
It might be American League, although I don't know if he's ahead of Gunnar Henderson or not. But
who knows? Shows I've not done enough research this week, and I've put more time into setting up these microphones.
Yeah, he was very hard at work, guys. Speaking of Gunnar Henderson, let's talk about the Orioles, who are right there, only 1.5 games back. And this division, I think, is going to be really close the whole way through. Orioles still playing good baseball, beat the Red Sox today 11-3. Red Sox are in third, right at 500, pretty much what they have been all year. Rays are in fourth, and then the Blue Jays in fifth have put Bo Bichette and Vlad Jr. on the trade block and might be about to get the worst City Connect uniform of all time.
Oh, man. If you would like to see what Mike is talking about, just go to Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it.
It'll be on the screen.
Oh, it'll be on the screen.
You don't have to go anywhere. Stay tuned in.
I doubted the graphics department.
The
there you go.
graphics department will have
Feast your eyes on these terrible-looking jerseys.
Right here somewhere right now on the screen. It's gonna. I would say it looks great, but it doesn't. It looks like a bowling league jersey, as one.
Is this the worst City Connect they've dropped yet?
Ooh, it's up there. What do you think? Is there one that's worse? I know a lot of people like the White Sox one. I don't like the White Sox one, but I don't think that's the worst by any chance. Rockies with green pants.
Rockies is bottom 5 for sure.
With the green pants, they're bad. Mariners with the black pants were pretty awful.
Yeah, but I feel like the top is cool enough to kind of...
Yeah, they might be the worst. So Nike and Fanatics saving the worst for last, which is on brand.
Yeah, not surprised there.
No.
At all.
And then moving over to the AL Central as you round off the AL East there. The Guardians, still, as you love to say, those friendship and smiles keep carrying them at the top of this division. And the Royals are still right there with them. And it took them only about half as long this year to win 30 games than last year. So the turnaround for this team has been absolutely insane. Bobby Witt, a lot of people have been talking about Bobby Witt recently, is if you were going to draft any player in the MLB to start your team with, a lot of people are taking Bobby Witt 1-1. Would you take Bobby Witt 1-1?
Probably.
I think I personally would lean Juan Soto, but just because he's quite young as well. All the people saying Shohei Ohtani, he's too old. Otherwise, definitely, but he's too old at this point if you're taking for 10, 15 years in the future. But
I could hear an argument either way.
I think it's definitely Soto and Witt right there. I wish I could say Ellie, but he's not proven to be consistent of enough hitter by any means. But Bobby Witt is doing just amazing things for this Royals team. Really kind of the heart and soul that's driving this rebuild, just as you wanted him to be. And in an interview the other day, he said he wanted to win a World Series and he wants to win it in Kansas City, which if you're a Royals fan, that has to be music to your ears there. Yeah,
I'm sure my grandfather, Dexter Friesen, loves to hear that one. And I've been kind of diving into the numbers with the Royals and comparing them to the team that they won the World Series with, I believe in 2015, was it, or 2014?
I think it was 15. I think the Giants won in 14.
Yeah, that's right. So I honestly think the roster of this 2024 team, and just like if you dissect each category, I think this roster is better than that team that won the World Series.
I think you have to say so for sure. It's just, I don't want to go by the excitement measure because I'd say this team is more exciting for sure. But
more aura, if you will.
Yeah, it feels more well-built. Like you're not necessarily saying the only thing we have is speed and defense.
Right.
You feel like you have more. Like there is power in this lineup. Salvador Perez, Bobby Witt Jr. has power as well. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of pop from MJ Melendez or Nelson Velazquez on some days. So I think this team is definitely more well-rounded for sure. And then going through the rest of this division, the Twins and Tigers really starting to fall away. The Tigers can't hit. Now that the pitching is starting to falter outside of Reese Olson and Tarek Skubal, it's just kind of game over for them. And then the White Sox have hit the 40 loss mark. So round of applause for the Chicago White Sox for hitting the 40 loss mark. Yeah, there we go. He was ready with the soundboard.
Shout out to the applause button on the soundboard.
Yeah, it's doing so well so far.
Very cool. 2 for 2 today.
Yeah, really great track.
Still batting 1,000.
Yeah. Well, there was the one mishap last week.
I blame that on soundtrack key letter H. I think that was more of a miscue on his part.
Really wanting to be the number one guy in the offense rather than the role player he needs to be. Yeah.
Sometimes you just got to accept that you're the number 2, kind of like Kyrie with Luka now.
Yeah, and that would be an excellent segue to the NBA segment, but it's time to talk about the AL West. Is the Seattle Mariners stay in the lead of this division?
Is this the new American League Central?
It's so bad. Every team in this division has a negative run differential right now.
And listen to this. The Rangers are in second place in the division, and they have the 5th worst odds to make the playoffs.
Holy cow.
How is that possible?
That's pretty bad. Yeah, Astros in third. 3.5 games back, despite being 24
I'm telling you,
and 29.
They're gonna win the division. I'm telling you.
The A's are there. The A's are in 4th again. They've climbed off the basement. Mason Miller's FIP is no longer negative, which is sad. But
yeah, very sad.
And then, goodness, the Angels. Did you see the Miguel Sano injury where he left a heat pad on his knee for too long and was out?
I did.
Is bro 80 years old?
He could be.
Yeah, but imagine being Ron Washington right now. I know you love Ron Washington as a Braves fan. It just feels like he was thrown into a no-win scenario out there.
Yeah, shout out to the Angels for getting rid of Shohei Ohtani immediately after getting rid of Shohei Ohtani, hiring Ron Washington. So he kind of walked into a tough situation. Then Mike Trout getting injured as well.
And got him nothing for Ohtani as well. Just let him walk in free agency. So Angels ineptitude staying just as always. It's always going to be that way as long as Artie Moreno's the owner, honestly. So I hope he sells that team soon. But moving over to the National League, the Phillies sit in the lead of the NL East still, 6 games ahead of the Braves. And the Braves now without Ronald Acuña, they're really going to need players like Matt Olson, Austin Riley once he gets healthy to really step up, Ozzie Albies. If Marcell Ozuna keeps doing what he's doing, you've at least got that in the lineup for sure. But you need some of these other guys who are kind of starting to get hot a little bit to really keep that trajectory, because without Acuña, there's a big hole in this lineup.
Yeah, then an update on that front. Austin Riley actually did return to the lineup today, as did Sean Murphy. So you do lose Acuña for the season. And while I know he probably would have improved throughout the course of the season, he really didn't give you that much this season, other than 15 stolen bases, really.
But there's not a ton to replace him with either, from what I've seen of this.
No, there's not. But I will say the Braves are 9 games over 5. They were 10 games over 500 without Sean Murphy. Now you get Sean Murphy back and you get Austin Riley back after a 2.5 week stretch of not having him. So I think it's more on guys like, I don't think you need another superstar. I think it's just time for like guys like Kelenic, Duvall. Like they've got to hit around 270, get their OPS up a good bit, because both of those guys OPS is in the 600s. Just not going to work, because Brian Snitker did say, at least based on what they have right now in the farm system and on the major league roster, they're going to be going with Kelenic in left and Duvall in right every day. Those players have kind of been platooning in left field all season. So it's going to be interesting to see how Duvall responds, especially to playing every day over there in right field. And then Michael Harris, in my opinion, is the guy who needs to step up the most. He actually has the second highest chase rate in all of Major League Baseball, which is not very good for. I'd say he's a pretty decent hitter, but he's got to improve that eye a good bit. Need him to draw some walks, because he's one of those guys that can use his speed to steal some bases as well. Yeah. But I think the Braves are going to be okay. I do think the Phillies are probably going to win the division this season, just with their 6-game lead. And I think their lineup is deeper now without Ronald Acuña Jr., which is tough for me to say. But if there's any Braves fans watching, if I can give you any solace, the best team in Major League Baseball never wins the World Series. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, not usually, no.
I think twice in the past decade has the best team won the World Series. So
you hear that, New York Yankees
just got to get hot at the right time. I don't think it'll be a Phillies-Yankees World Series like all the national media wants to tell you it will be.
Yeah, definitely not. And then the rest of this division just kind of exists right now. None of these teams really in wild card range.
It's a 2-horse race for sure.
Yeah. Then the Mets are there. Marlins closing in on that 40-loss mark as well. Then over in the NL Central, the Brewers just keep kind of running away with this now. After they've played the Cubs, they've taken some games over the Cubs now. Lead up to 4.5 games. Cardinals sit in 3rd, Pirates in 4th, and the Reds sit in 5th, but they're on a 4-game win streak right now.
There you go, Reds.
And Mike Ford has been absent from the lineup in a lot of those games. It's almost like he was terrible, and the team's better when he doesn't hit.
Shout out to Nick Lodolo for getting them the win today.
Had a great start today. It was good to see him back. Was on the 15-day IL with a groin injury, but is back, and Dolo's dealing. Dolo's always going to be dealing. Dolo Day. It's so much alliteration, so much good things happen when Nick Lodolo is on the mound. But I hope my Reds can make a run. I fear we've given up too much ground too early to really be able to get back into this. Although if TJ Friedel can come back, which is looking like he may be back next week, and then we can just survive until
put the man back in the arena. put him back in.
Yes, put him back in. We haven't, honestly, the Reds have two of the best defensive center fielders in the game, and it's just a shame that Stuart Fairchild can't hit righties and TJ Friedel's injured all the time because they both are elite defenders out there in center.
Sure.
But I don't know. We'll see what happens with the Reds. And finally, the NL West. It's the Dodgers. It's still the Dodgers. But the Dodgers are on a 5-game losing streak right now. And how about my San Francisco Giants?
Creeping back in there.
They're creeping back in. The even-year Giants cannot be avoided. They're coming back in slowly. So maybe if they can put a better stretch together, they're starting a brutal homestand right now. But we'll see if they can keep it going. Padres.
Looks like they're in the thick of it for a wild card run. I know it's early in the season.
They're definitely right there. Them and the Padres both are kind of fighting for that second wild card spot even now as the Cubs have fallen to 27 and 27. Diamondbacks, maybe you could say, still in that race of the Nationals and Cardinals, and Pirates kind of on that fringe.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say Phillies, Braves, Dodgers, Brewers are all going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, but it's going to be a dogfight.
But then beyond that, I mean, I could see any team in the NL Central rebounding and winning and getting into the wild card just because the Pirates pitching staff, starting rotation is so good.
Well, you look at the NL wild card right now. You have the Braves 4 games to the good. Giants and Padres tied for that second wild card spot. Then Cubs half a game out. Cardinals game and a half out. Diamondbacks 2 games out. Pirates and Nationals 2.5 games out. Reds 3.5 games out. All of the wild card. Mets only 4.5, but I don't think they can rebound. Then Rockies and Marlins exist. But for most of the NL to be under 5 games from a wild card spot right now, this thing's still wide open if any team gets hot for sure. But we'll just have to see what happens with that. But I think it's going to be a great race this year for sure, and I am super excited for it.
Yeah, me too.
And now let's talk about some more college football schedules. I know we did this a couple weeks ago with the SEC. Well, this week we are back with the Big Ten, and we're going to be breaking down the schedules of what we kind of think will be the Big 4 teams in the Big Ten this year. Oregon, Ohio State.
So weird for Oregon to be in the Big Ten. I still am not used to it.
So weird. It's going to be very odd, although the games are going to be great.
Oh, man.
Very much looking forward to this. And let's start with these Oregon Ducks. Let's go through the schedule here. First off, we have the Oregon spring game. Who do you think wins that?
The green team.
Ooh, I don't know. It's already happened. I don't know who won. It doesn't list a winner, but shout out the Oregon spring game. I'm sure they were bopping up there ready to go. Then they start the season with a hotly contested matchup versus the Vandals of Idaho in Eugene, Oregon.
That's a win.
Heard it here first. Hammer Oregon money line versus Idaho.
It's going to be like minus 7,000.
Minus 7,000, yeah.
Let's go.
Then they take on the Boise State Broncos, which if this game was in Boise, maybe some funny things could happen, but it's in Eugene. I think Oregon takes care of business there.
Yep.
And then the weirdest game on the schedule for me is week 3, going to Corvallis to take on Oregon State.
Hey, shout out to protecting the rivalry, the Civil War is what they like to call it in Oregon.
Yeah, although apparently that name was canceled, so I don't know what they're calling it now.
Yikes.
Yeah.
I have not been trained for these things.
Welcome to SM Sports Radio After Dark, where we still call rivalries the old names. But, yeah, I think they beat Oregon State pretty easily.
Yes.
Then they take on UCLA in Pasadena. UCLA's awful. That's another easy win for the Ducks. I think they're going to be 4-0. Michigan State in Eugene. Michigan State's terrible, 5-0. They get Ohio State in Eugene. I think that's 6-0. I think this Oregon team, you look at the receiving core they've brought in, Evan Stewart coming in, then Dylan Gabriel coming in to play quarterback, and then this cornerback group is just freakishly good right now with all the talent they have on that side of the football. I think this is going to be one of the more complete teams in football this season. I think they beat Ohio State.
I'm not ready to commit either way. I think that they're going to lose one of the Ohio State or Michigan games. Don't know which one yet. So,
yeah, so I have them at 6 wins here. You're rocking 5.5. I think they beat Purdue pretty easily.
Yes.
I think they beat Illinois pretty easily. Then at Michigan, I think if Oregon trips up, that's the game. That's my one maybe loss for them on the schedule this year, and I know you kind of were feeling the same way about that.
Yeah, I think they go 1-1. I do not see them going 0-2 in these games, so I'm kind of on the same page with you. I just not sure. I really like Ohio State next season, so I'll say they lose to Ohio State and beat Michigan.
Oh, I like Ohio State too, but we saw what happened. Oregon won at Ohio State a couple years ago. I know it's vastly different teams, but the skill level there, that was a more talented Ohio State team than that Oregon team, and it's the same coaches, I think. No, that was still Cristobal, but I think, or was that Dan Lanning? It was either first year of Dan Lanning or last year Mario Cristobal. Anyway.
What year was that?
It was 2 years ago, I think.
2 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago.
I think that was year one of Lanning.
Yeah, so the same two coaches here. I think if Lanning can get it done with a talent deficit in Columbus, he can definitely get it done in Eugene with what I think is a better team, honestly. I like this Ohio State team a lot, but I think this Oregon team is more talented.
I just think that Ohio State fans are so done with Ryan Day if he keeps losing games like this that I think that alone, like obviously this is not a football answer at all, but I think this season is kind of going to be kind of a prove it or get out of here season for Ryan Day. So I'm going to lean Ohio State here. I'm not sure how it's going to get done, but I think it's going to get done.
Yeah, and then their
hard-hitting analysis over here.
Yes, definitely. Then their last 3 games of the year, they get Maryland, easy win. At Wisconsin is a potential trap game, especially the week before rivalry weekend, but I think they get that done. Then they're going to be out for revenge versus a massively depleted Washington team talent-wise. I think they honestly cream Washington.
I think they destroy them here. Fun fact, I was actually at the last matchup between these two teams over there in Vegas.
Yes.
Shout out to my Vegas squad that made a spontaneous trip for the Pac-12 championship, the last one ever in football, so that was pretty cool.
Did y'all fly Spirit Airlines?
We sure did.
Spirit Airlines.
It's quite the experience. Yes. $150 round-trip flight from Charleston to Las Vegas. Direct.
Yeah.
It was insane. It was immaculate.
We're not sponsored by Spirit Airlines, by the way. So,
10 out of 10 experience. Yeah. We were rooting for Oregon, and we were disappointed, but kind of cool, foreshadowing me watching my future QB1 of the Atlanta Falcons. So kind of a win-win in retrospect.
Future QB1. We'll see. But so
he better be future QB1.
We'll see what happens there.
Come on.
Yeah, I have Oregon at 11-1.
I'll ride with 11-1 as well.
You have that similar mark for them. Let's talk about Ohio State. The first games, I think we can chalk them up 4-0 pretty easily with Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall, Michigan State. They get Iowa at home. I think that's a potential trap game, but I think they win that versus Iowa to start 5-0. We've already talked about the game versus Oregon. I think they lose that. You think they might win it. Then,
man, I wish the Nebraska game was in Lincoln, man.
This is going to be such a fun game to see what Dylan Raiola might be made of as a true freshman coming into Columbus. I think that Nebraska might put up a good fight. I just don't think they're good enough.
Those fans are craving a winner so bad. Shout out once again to Dexter Friesen, my grandfather, who has been waiting for Nebraska to be good at football again, probably since, the early 2000s?
Yeah.
It's time for them to return to the glory days, the Cornhuskers.
I hope they do. They're one of those programs that we always talk about where college football is better when Nebraska's better. And so
correct.
I hope that Raiola can take them back to glory for sure. Then the next game on the schedule for Ohio State is at Penn State. It's going to be hyped. Penn State's going to lose. It's
Drew Aller.
Every year. Drew Aller couldn't throw the ball 40 yards.
I feel like every year around this time, that every other year, I guess, when Ohio State goes to Happy Valley, I'm always like, oh, Penn State's going to have a chance.
No,
Ohio State's going to lose. They always win by 30.
Except
for the one year where the blocked field goal happened.
Yeah.
That was cool.
This is typical James Franklin doesn't show up with the hype type game, so I don't think they get it done.
You can always chalk James Franklin up 9-3 or 10-2 pretty much.
Definitely, yeah. Then the last 3 games before the game are Purdue, Northwestern, Indiana. Those are 3 pretty easy wins. And then the Michigan game in Columbus, Ohio.
If they don't get it done this year, Day's gone. He's gone, period.
I think because of the level of that, as far as a must-win game, I think this is the year they finally get one back over on Michigan.
And maybe the pressure being off a little bit to where, if you lose that game, you're still okay in terms of getting into the college football playoff. Maybe that pressure being taken off is what's going to be good for them. But then you kind of replace that. You replace that pressure with the fact they haven't won in 4 years in that rivalry, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think Ohio State's going to win that one, though.
Yeah, so I have them at 11-1.
12-0 for me.
Ooh, interesting. Then over to the team we were just talking about, and the Michigan Wolverines. They start with Fresno State, easy win, but then they welcome Texas to town.
Big noon kickoff.
Yes.
Quinn Ewers.
This is a game I cannot make up my mind on who I want.
I made up my mind. Texas is winning.
Michigan has so much talent, though. I want to pick Michigan, but also this Texas team I think is just too good to lose this early. So this is a flip a coin game for me right now. I think when you were talking about Texas a couple weeks ago, I took Michigan to win that game. I'm going to ride with that for now. Quinn Ewers he has a little bit of a weakness versus pressure, and with the talent of this Michigan defensive line, I just think that could be the tipping point, especially when you combine that with the crowd in the big house, but we'll have to see. I think they take care of Arkansas State pretty easily. I think they honestly take care of Southern Cal pretty easily as well. Mm-hmm. Southern Cal has no defense to speak of.
Right.
Minnesota, another game I think they get through fairly easily. Washington is not the Washington of last year. I think they get that done. Illinois shouldn't be too difficult of a game. Michigan State, they get them at home. That should be a wipe the floor type game. Oregon at Michigan is another game where I think it's going to be very close.
Give me the Ducks.
Yeah, I think this is the one game Oregon might drop all season, honestly, just because of the environment. And in case you guys can't tell, I'm super high on this Michigan defensive line. I think they're going to carry this team a long way. Then Indiana, I think they get that done. Northwestern, they get that done. And I think we're both are we both in agreement that they lose to Ohio State?
Yes. Ohio State's winning.
So Ohio State winning that. So Michigan, I have kind of right around that 10-2 range for this year.
10-2 for me.
Yeah, and then finally, the perpetual disappointment that is the Penn State Nittany Lions, led by James Franklin. And I think this team starts 0-1.
Interesting.
Going to West Virginia, the first game of the year. This is a West Virginia team that's been flying under the radar. They have a pretty good quarterback, and I just don't think that that Penn State's going to be ready for this game. Morgantown is going to be absolutely hyped. I think this is going to be really one of the first big upsets that we see of the season this year.
That would be cool. I'm going to ride with Penn State here.
Yeah, fair enough. Then, so many easy wins here. Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA. At Southern Cal, I think could be a tripping point just because...
I kind of like them to lose against Southern Cal more than West Virginia.
Yeah, I could see them dropping that game as well for sure. So I'll say
I don't know if they have
losses.
I don't know if they have the offense that is going to easily exploit the Southern Cal's lacking defense.
I don't think they do either, and I know.
And if they get in a shootout, I don't trust Drew Aller to be able to
definitely
put up the numbers to be in a shootout.
I'd be willing to take Southern Cal in that game. I know that the LA universities, that crowds don't exactly show up for those games all the time.
There's not much of a home field advantage.
I think USC might get that done regardless. At Wisconsin, I think that's honestly a sneaky game they could drop as well. Then Washington, I think they get it done. But the Ohio State game there is really the one that I think they're going to get massively exposed if they haven't been already by this point in the year. Then I think they get it done versus Purdue, Minnesota, and Maryland day in the year for sure.
About 9-3. Who would have guessed?
9-3. Who would have guessed? Yeah, James Franklin team going 9-3.
No way. Wow. Crazy.
Shocking. Yeah, but so that is our Big Ten breakdown there. I think this is going to be not quite as tight as the SEC race. I think this is a bit more defined on who your top two teams are. We expect it to be Ohio State and Oregon at the end of the year in the Big Ten, but Michigan, I still think, will be a playoff team, and Penn State, I do not think will be a playoff team this year. Just not good enough. Drew Aller is not good enough, in my opinion, and that's kind of where I stand on that until he shows massive improvement.
I can live with that.
Yeah. Then over to the NBA, where everything has not gone well for me as far as my Western Conference predictions, where I said Wolves in 5, and the exact opposite might happen here.
Yeah.
If the Wolves can win tomorrow night to force Game 5, Mavericks might just win it anyway.
Flashback to 2 weeks ago when we said whoever wins, or maybe it was last week, whoever wins the Thunder Mavs series will get destroyed by the Wolves or the Nuggets. Well,
great analysis.
That was idiotic.
There. Yeah.
That was pretty dumb.
I think what we failed to consider is playoff Kyrie in that.
Both that and bad Kitty.
Oh, my goodness. The graphics people were on one for that. Holy cow. But really, Karl Anthony Towns has been awful.
Man, he's been terrible, and it couldn't have come at a worse time for the Wolves because
Karl Anthony Curry out there. 3.
Yeah.
3.
Says he's putting up 1,500 shots a day. The Inside the NBA crew called cap on that one, and I think I'm going to call cap on that as well.
Sounds like a Dr. Seuss book.
Number one, why in the world are you, a 7-footer, taking 1,500 threes a day? Get your butt in the paint and back down Derek Lively, who is literally, other than Daniel Gafford, the only guy they have that can stop you and Rudy Gobert.
The GOAT, Goaty.
In the paint. I feel like when Cat gets his back to the basket and tries to get inside, I feel like he's successful, but instead he's going to settle and shoot 0 for 8 from 3.
Why would you not do that?
In a must-win game 3. Like, you have enough shooters on that team. Naz Reid has been shooting incredibly. Jaden McDaniels has shot it pretty good in this playoffs. Anthony Edwards has been all right as a shooter in this postseason. He struggled in this series, but I think a lot of it has to do with...
Are the lights too bright for Ant in this series?
I think he just needs one more guy because Cat clearly is not that guy. It's year 9. I would argue that year 2 was his best season of his career, averaged 25 and 12 in year 2 of his career. Hasn't done much since then. This season, he was finally doing good. I was bragging on him last series for really being the guy that kind of pushed them over the top. We know what we're going to get from Anthony Edwards, but Karl Anthony Towns, we're starting to know what we're going to get from you as well, and it's not in the positive way. I just think that unless he, by some miraculous way, just starts shooting 40% from 3, then he needs to just shoot 4 or 5 shots from outside per game, maximum. I think that you're going to need to work that inside-out game more. Let the guards, let Naz Reid, who is a better shooting big man than you, take those shots. And last thing from me on this series, I understand that teams are either 0-152 or 0-159 when they're trailing 3-0 in a series. But this is what I'm going to tell you. And you can disregard this if by the time you're watching this, they have been swept.
They could have already lost.
Because that would be very unfortunate for what I'm about to say. But I do think that if any team can come back from a 3-0 deficit, it's these Wolves.
I don't think they have it in them. Well, you look at Kyrie Irving is undefeated in closeout games.
Yeah, that's probably not going to lose 4 in a row.
He's not going to lose 4 in a row. I think they're cooked. I think you had to win game 3. You couldn't afford to go down 2-0, but you absolutely had to win game 3.
I'll say this. If they win game 4, which you will know if they won game 4 by the time you're watching this. If they win game 4, this series is going 7. That's my hot take. Because you're going back to Minnesota down 3-1 in this hypothetical situation. Hopefully it is coming true by the time you're listening to this or watching this. You're going back to Minnesota. You win game 5 there. Oh, all of a sudden it's 3-2. You go back to Dallas. All you need is an off shooting night from either Luka or Kyrie, and you're going to win the game. That's just point blank, period. And if you go back to Minnesota for a game 7,
they're cooked.
I don't know.
They're cooked.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
I'm giving this will age very well. I'm giving this a 0% chance.
Oh, I feel so much better about their chances now.
I said Thunderwolves combine the two teams.
I have so much more faith in them now. Thank you, Micah.
Kyrie Irving.
Round of applause for Micah's curse.
Is not losing 4 closeout games in a row after being undefeated in them.
Ant's going to put him in jail in game 4 and game 5. That's hopefully there's a game 5. Disregard this entire segment if they lose Tuesday night.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens tomorrow, and then we'll...
Celtics are in the finals, though.
Yeah, Celtics are in the finals. I was about to say, they have swept the Indiana Pacers, and this series could easily be 2-2 right now. Instead, the Pacers didn't feel like winning.
I revisit my point from last week. Is this the most Mickey Mouse run to the NBA Finals in the history of the NBA playoffs?
I don't know. It felt like in multiple games in this series,
Listen, hear me out.
The Pacers had a chance, and then Adam Silver went, guys, we have to let the Celtics win.
They had a chance, yes. But think about it this way. First round, who did the Celtics play? The Heat. Who did the Heat not have? Jimmy Butler. Second round, who did the Heat? Who did the Celtics play? They played the Cavaliers. Who did the Cavs not have in the last 2 games of the series? Donovan Mitchell. Both of those past 2 guys that I just mentioned, best players. Who did they not have to face in games 3 or 4 of this series with the Pacers? Tyrese Halliburton.
I'll tell you what this reminds me a lot of. It reminds me when my Phoenix Suns went to the finals playing injury-ridden team after injury-ridden team, and then they made it a good fight in the finals but ultimately lost. I think whoever comes out of the West, spoilers, it's the Mavericks, are going to be more battle-tested at this point, and you give me the 1-2 of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown versus the 1-2 of Luka and Kyrie, I don't care how bad Luka is on defense. I think they win that series.
I don't know. I think that series would not be very close. I think it'd be Celtics in 5 or 6.
I don't know. There's something to be said for these consistently battle-tested teams in the postseason.
But the Celtics have been here before. Celtics been to the finals. This is the second time in the past 3 years they've been to the finals. Been in the Eastern Conference Finals. Jason Tatum's been in all these big series. Jaylen Brown's been in all these big series.
They're the worst good team of all time, and I don't want them to win it. And that's definitely biasing.
I don't want them to either, but I think it's their year. Sadly,
they just feel like the worst good team I've ever seen, where they're a solid team and they're winning, but I don't feel like they should be. Which I'm not an NBA expert by any means. This is definitely more your territory, but I don't know. I just think whoever comes out of the West is going to be just that much more battle-tested and ready for this.
But I think you could kind of flip that on the other side. Like, the Celtics have not really gotten banged up at all throughout the playoffs. They haven't really had to labor to win a series. Their legs are going to be fresher.
And what's going to happen if they play the Mavs and suddenly Jason Tatum is playing versus Luka and Luka's refs? What happens?
Who's going to guard Tatum?
I don't know.
There's not a good matchup there. That's a spoiler alert. Derrick Jones Jr. will probably get put on him.
You won't see the same free throw disparity in a Mavericks-Celtics series, I think, that you've seen on most of their other series.
One thing we're failing to mention, though, the Celtics are going to be getting Kristaps Porzingis back, too.
That is true.
Like, they've won all these games without, I'd say, a top 15 center in the NBA. I mean, Drew Holiday's knocking down threes. He's one of the best defensive guards in the NBA.
So much I don't want them to win.
I don't want it to happen either. Don't get me wrong, but I think
it might be inevitable.
I think it's inevitable. Number one, because they're far more talented than the Mavs, just in general, top to bottom. And number two, usually what happens when a team is the underdog, but they're like a trendy underdog, in this case, probably the Mavericks. I think a lot of people would be rooting for the Mavericks in this series, placing bets on the Mavericks in these series. I think it's just going to be the trendy thing to do. And I think that the Celtics are just I think that makes it that much more likely that the Celtics get it done.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see.
But just wait until the Wolves come back.
They're not.
And push this series to 7.
They're not. Kyrie is not losing 4 consecutive closeout games.
We'll see. We'll see.
Our last point on the NBA here, a brief RIP to Inside the NBA, which is being discontinued after the season, which is just sad.
They're actually giving them next season.
They are? Okay.
Next season's their last season.
When was that announced?
I think it was just like a misnomer. So when they announced it, it was 24-25 will be the last season of Inside the NBA, which is very sad. And I'm sure there would be a way to get Kenny Smith and Charles Barkley and Shaq back together. But the thing is, the hinge point is that Ernie Johnson is loyal to Turner Sports, and he's not going to leave. He'll probably just retire if they lose NBA coverage. So
would you like to see
be a massive RIP there?
Do you think you could ever get close to the same thing, having the Inside the NBA crew be the sole like March Madness studio team?
What do you mean by that?
Like every March Madness, you know how it would cut back. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was not the same exact crew for the March Madness studio.
Right, but similar, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have just the Inside the NBA guys become your main like March Madness hub coverage, do you think you could kind of capture the same thing, or do you think it would not be the same?
You could, but Inside the NBA goes all season long, which is 7-8 months. March Madness is what, a 3-week stretch?
Yeah, but
I think there'd just be a lot of missed opportunity there.
That's true. You could get into other stuff, though. They don't have to be constrained to just March Madness.
Right. I think what you're going to have to do is kind of get those personalities. Like, those personalities aren't there because of their basketball knowledge. They're there to entertain us. Let's just be real. So I think you could see, I could see, some of those guys maybe.
Do you think Draymond Green gets an invite?
When Draymond Green retires, I could see him joining that. And I could see them even being like a studio crew for college football. Just being idiots and
that would be
I could see it happening. They're more entertainers than they are. Oh, let's break down what happened in that basketball game.
Listen, Charles Barkley in the studio after a devastating Auburn loss would be something else.
It would, and I'm sure he could find uglier women than the women in San Antonio to get onto some of these colleges.
I don't need to hear the Charles Barkley Tuscaloosa women rant. That would be
might feed families.
A disaster. I don't know, but
I think those guys though are going to stay together in some form or fashion. I just don't really know what it's going to look like, and they're going to either have to find their next Ernie Johnson. You're not really going to be able to replace Ernie Johnson in the to the same effect. But I think if you maybe add a couple guys, a couple other personalities that are maybe in the same category but not specifically for the NBA, I think you could have something there. Like add some personalities from the NFL. I don't really think an MLB guy would really mesh well with them, but add a football guy or two to that crew and make it just more of a sports show. Because the reason we like watching inside the NBA, it's not, Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith and Shaquille O'Neal were in the NBA. Let's hear what they have to say about these games. No, we want to laugh at what they're saying and how they're picking at each other. I think you got to create something of that nature.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll be able to do it. I personally hope they are, but
for sure,
we'll have to see how that plays out. But that is it for the NBA this week. And over to the NHL, where we are into conference finals.
I would be lying if I said that I have watched a single game in the conference finals, so I will be letting you break this down.
We'll run through this pretty quickly for the couple people that are interested in hockey that watch. The Rangers have taken a lead over the Panthers 2-1, and it's really just on the back of Igor Shesterkin right now. This Rangers defense has been solid enough, but Shesterkin is really carrying the load for them right now, outplaying Sergei Bobrovsky consistently. It's midnight, and the Rangers are really riding him to victory right now. And I still think the series goes 7. I think the Panthers find a way to break through more consistently, but Shesterkin right now is on his way to the Conn Smythe for sure, in my opinion. If the Rangers win the Cup, then the Stars are trying to take a 2-1 lead over the Edmonton Oilers right now. Let's check in on that game right quick. And they have. The Stars have beat the Oilers 5-3 and taken a 2-1 lead on the Oilers. So, I don't know. I still think the Stars get that done in 6. Edmonton just doesn't have the defense and goaltending, despite how good Stuart Skinner has been before tonight, allowing 5 goals. But we'll just have to see what happens with these two series. I honestly think any matchup of these 4 teams gives us a good Stanley Cup final, but I'm just excited either way. Hockey playoffs are, like we mentioned last week, some of the best in sports.
Yeah, I need to watch the finals. I haven't been able to get into these series just with all the other sports that are going on right now, but
it's a lot going on right now.
Gonna make some time for the finals for sure. The Stanley Cup finals, always pretty electric and one of the cooler trophies in sports as well.
Oh, for sure. It's massive.
So very cool from the NHL. Shout out to the NHL for being a thing. I'm sorry for not being as much of a fan as some other people.
Congratulations to the NHL for existing.
But let's go back to a sport that both of us know something about, and that's college baseball. Would you like to go through the regionals and maybe pick a winner from each region? I think that would be decently fun.
Let's do it.
I've got it in alphabetical order in front of me right here. I believe Georgia is the 7 seed nationally. The Athens regional will have number 1 Georgia facing off against number 4 Army West Point, then UNC Wilmington and Georgia Tech, the 2-3 seed there. I think this is one of the weaker regional fields out of the 16 that there are. I think Georgia rolls here. I'm a little concerned about their pitching.
But who's going to stop Charlie Condon?
Yeah, nobody. He's batting almost 500 with a 1,600 OPS, by the way.
It's absurd.
It's absolutely ridiculous. I think Georgia rolls here. I'm a little concerned about their pitching if you're just talking about the holistic approach of the postseason. I don't think they get to Omaha by any means. But
I would love to see the Georgia Tech matchup to decide the winner of the regional here.
That would be cool. Drew Burris versus Charlie Condon.
Yeah, 2 of the best hitters in the sport this year. I would love to see that. I do think Georgia gets it done, though, in this regional. Just not enough challengers, I think, to them out of here, despite the bad pitching.
Yeah, definitely. And then moving down in alphabetical order, the Bryan College Station regional hosted by Texas A&M. Would you like to pull up the seeds while I kind of get into this, just so we can maybe even get into some potential super regional matchups as well? In the College Station regional, Texas A&M, obviously the 1 seed. You got Grambling coming into the 4th seed. That'll be the 1 o'clock game in that regional on Friday. Then you got Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns at number 2, sitting at 40-18 on the season. Don't know too much about them. I'm not as well versed in my mid-majors in college baseball as I am in college basketball. My apologies there. And then number 3 seed Texas in that regional. Also not a huge believer in this field holistically. Just based on the records, I'd say Louisiana probably has a chance here to give Texas a run for their money, or Texas A&M. I don't know if I said Texas or Texas A&M there, but I think Texas A&M comes out of this regional. I think this is also a pretty weak field, And I'm a little jealous as a Clemson fan of these two regional fields.
This Texas A&M team is just so good. They have been all year. I think they're a fairly complete team compared to what we see in college baseball now, but I definitely think they get it done in their regional. And then they are the number 3 overall seed coming out of that regional. Georgia was the number 7 seed. You were right about that. So the highest seed, I think, wins both of those regionals. Now the Chapel Hill regional, hosted by number 4 seed North Carolina, as they will have LSU, Wofford, and LIU joining them in that regional, and I feel bad for the Tar Heels.
I do as well. They got
LSU is not who I would want to see as my 2 seed.
I was coming into today's selection show, Monday's selection show, I guess. Monday morning, Monday at noon, selection show. I was coming in kind of thinking that Clemson was either going to see LSU or South Carolina in their regional. I didn't want to see LSU because they're one of the hottest teams in college baseball, in my opinion, at this time. And South Carolina, just kind of a rivalry there. So didn't really want to see that either.
No, shout out the guy massively revving his Dodge Challenger outside right now.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, great exhaust.
I also think that LSU is going to win this regional.
Yeah,
I don't know if you solidified the pick yet.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think LSU gets this done. And then if they win this regional, let's see, that would match them up with the winner of the Tucson regional. So I think LSU could be on their way to Omaha.
Yeah, definitely possible. Try to defend that title from last season. Moving over to the Charlottesville regional. Got another host from the ACC in Virginia, the number 2 seed. Another 2 seed, Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's going to come out of this regional. You also got St. John's, the automatic qualifier out of the Big East. Won in electric fashion there in that tournament. And then UPenn coming out of the Ivy League. They're the 4 seed. I think this is another kind of 2-horse race.
These SEC 2 seeds are really going to be giving a lot of teams headaches.
Definitely. I'm going to take Mississippi State here.
Yeah,
I think they're the better team.
Well. I think they're better than Virginia.
I think they got a little bit slighted. Maybe should be hosting.
Yeah, and you look at that matchup too. If Arkansas can take care of business in their region, that would set up a great matchup between Mississippi State and Arkansas there for sure. Then down to your Clemson Tigers in the Clemson regional, and yikes.
I honestly don't hate it.
It's not the worst region, but Vanderbilt is not a bad team, and Clemson's history in the postseason recently in the tournament is just, it's there. I know this is a better Clemson team, in my opinion, from what I've watched, but just until they're able to break through on that, I'm going to have a little bit of doubt reserved for them.
So you picking Vanderbilt?
I'd still give the nod to Clemson, but it's hesitantly.
I am obviously very biased. I do a lot of work with the Clemson baseball team. I think that we're kind of going to know. I think we're going to know what Clemson is going to do in the postseason based on the first game. And you might be wondering, how in the world are you going to draw a conclusion from their game against High Point, the number 4 seed, coming in at 34-25? But I would say Clemson's only question mark this season has been their pitching. And the bullpen's been a little bit worse than the starting pitching, in my opinion. But that's kind of flipped on its head in the past couple of weeks. The bullpen's actually been pretty good, and outside of Aiden Canuck, the starting pitching's been, pretty bad. I expect to see Ethan Darden throw in this situation against High Point. He's a guy that got shelled in the ACC tournament in the first game against Miami. I don't think he got out of the second inning, so that's not very cool. Other guys you could maybe see in this High Point game at 7 p.m. on Friday, I think you could see Tristan Smith, who has been the number 2 guy for Clemson all season. But I also think that a Seneca product, Jacob McGovern, could see a start here at some point this weekend. I think there would be no better team to do it against than High Point, kind of save some of the higher velocity arms, maybe give Jacob a chance to get through the lineup one time and then take him out, see how he's doing at the beginning of the second time through the lineup. But I think that if Clemson is going to – I think the setup, the road for Clemson is this. Game 1 against High Point, you throw one of your lower leverage arms. You throw a guy like Darden or McGovern or Smith. I think if you win that one and you have the ability to pitch Aiden Canuck, assuming Vanderbilt beats Coastal, if you can pitch Aiden Canuck against Vanderbilt, I love that matchup so much. Aiden Canuck has been a top 15 pitcher in college, starting pitcher in college baseball this season. That is not opinion, that is fact, just based on stats. And Clemson has Omaha bats, but they kind of have Cancun arms, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm going to take Clemson out of this regional. I think they're going to kick down the door. Eric Bakich is one of the greatest coaches in all of college baseball, in my opinion. In year one, got so close to defeating Tennessee, but then a review overturned that allowed Tennessee to score the tying run, and then obviously the go-ahead home run hit off the closer Ryan Ammons after Caden Grice went 8 2/3 innings, got pulled for the last out. I think that experience, both for the coaching staff and for the returning players, is going to be enough to create the confidence and the experience that they need to get them over the top. I know we've lost to Vanderbilt a few times in the postseason in the past. I believe 3 of the last 4 times we've hosted a regional, we've hosted Vanderbilt, which is not cool at all.
This is not as good as previous Vanderbilt teams, though, I don't
Definitely not. And one of my core memories as a Clemson baseball fan, I believe I was 11 years old. I think it was in 2016 or 17, one of the two. And it came down to a game, I believe it was a Monday night game. Could have been a Sunday night game. I'm not positive. But I know it was our second game with Vanderbilt, and Kyle Wright was on the mound. And Kyle Wright pitched a complete game and gave up no runs. So that was not fun, but they don't have Kyle Wright this season. And no. I don't really I'm not as afraid of Vanderbilt as I would have been in LSU or even a South Carolina, just given the rivalry, the history there. Like, South Carolina usually comes to play in the postseason, especially against Clemson. You saw in 2010 in the College World Series in Omaha, South Carolina eliminating Clemson. So it's honestly, I'm not too concerned about the draw. I would much rather have Vanderbilt than LSU or South Carolina, so I'll take it here. Sorry for ranting there. We will not go as in-depth about the other regionals, but let's go ahead and head on down to Corvallis. Take it away, Corvallis.
Yeah, that regional is hosted by Oregon State, the number 15 overall seed, and they're joined by UC Irvine, Nichols, and Tulane. And I think Oregon State wins this region, honestly. And you look at the Lexington regional with Kentucky, with how good Kentucky was the regular season. They had a soft schedule, though, as far as SEC teams go. So I think Oregon State might come out of this and say, oh, thank goodness we only have to face Kentucky. If Kentucky can take care of their region as a 15 seed, that is not a bad super regional matchup.
No, definitely not. And Kentucky's kind of, like we've mentioned before, they kind of had a favorable SEC schedule. And so, yeah, I like Oregon State to come out of this regional as well. But I'm willing to say that no matter if it's Oregon State or if it's UC Irvine, I think the winner of this regional is going to Omaha. I'm going to come out and say that.
Nice. I like the pick. I definitely would say Oregon State would get that done. I'm less sure about UC Irvine versus Kentucky, but I definitely think they would also have a chance. Then down to number 5 seed Arkansas and the Fayetteville Regional, where they are joined by Louisiana Tech, Kansas State, and Southeast Missouri State. So a lot of states in this division here, or this regional, and Arkansas is just too good, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Arkansas is too good. I think they get this done pretty easily. I think they go to Omaha pretty easily.
Another weaker field. Who are they paired up with here?
They're paired up with the Virginia Regional. So yeah.
That could be Virginia or Mississippi State.
I think they'll be playing Mississippi State. I think they get that done as well. So I think Arkansas is headed to Omaha.
I agree there. I think I like that one. Then over back in North Carolina, East Carolina hosting a regional over there in Greenville.
Dang it.
They'll be facing off against Evansville, and they have Wake Forest as their number 2.
Wake Forest, congratulations on your regional win.
Yeah, I think that will be the case as well. And you know who they're paired up with? Tennessee.
Yeah.
And you would see Chase Burns going to face off against his former team. I
really hope you get this.
I think that would be a very electric matchup. I
would love to see that.
And I would lean Wake Forest there.
Yeah, I would. So I'm super excited for that. We'll have to see what happens there. And I definitely think Wake Forest gets
Christian Moore, obviously, been doing amazing things for Tennessee, been one of the hottest hitters in all the country.
2 different teams, because Wake Forest mostly carried by the pitching. Tennessee's got that huge lineup of bats. So that would, I think, be a very intriguing matchup. I think that's what's going to happen. Shout out to East Carolina for a great season. I just don't think you're better than Wake Forest, but it's how it goes sometimes. Then down, speaking of Tennessee, to the Knoxville Regional, where they are joined by Southern Miss, Indiana, Northern Kentucky, and Tennessee's going to a Super Regional. Now on to the Lexington Regional, hosted by Kentucky. They're joined by Indiana State, Illinois, and Western Michigan. I think Kentucky's good enough to at least get out of the regional. I think Indiana State's not a cakewalk, but I definitely think they're able to get out of here.
I think Indiana State pushes it to that winner-take-all Monday game, but I'm gonna take Kentucky to get out of here. I just don't think it's gonna be super easy. Indiana State feels like they got shafted from hosting. I think they had the metrics kind of comparable.
Is there a bigger rivalry than NCAA selection committees and Indiana State this year?
At least they got a seat at the table this year.
Yeah.
They're happy about that, and I'm sure they are ready to get some revenge for their basketball team.
And you look at this, honestly, if you're Indiana State, would you rather take a fired-up Wake Forest or a Kentucky right now?
Oh, Kentucky. No doubt.
So I think, like you said, they're not necessarily complaining too much right here.
This is not a bad draw for them by any means.
I think they definitely have a chance. I would still lean Kentucky right now, but they definitely have a chance for sure. Then down to the Norman, Oklahoma Regional, hosted by Oklahoma, the number 9 overall seed. They're joined by Duke, UConn, Oral Roberts, and what a winner-take-all Monday game this is going to be between Duke and Oklahoma, in my opinion. I think this is honestly a flip-a-coin thing right now.
Yeah.
Gun to my head, I think I go Duke.
I do as well.
But
Duke's hot coming off the ACC tournament championship. Obviously, getting a lot of work done with the bats in a season where their arms have kind of carried them. So the fact it is almost 1:00. The fact that the bats are alive and the pitching's still there. I'm going to take Duke here, but I do think you're onto something in that it could go to that game 7.
Yeah, definitely. Then the Raleigh Regional, hosted by 10 seed NC State. They are joined by South Carolina, James Madison, and Bryant. And this South Carolina team, I don't know what to do with them because I think this is a decent matchup. I think they could.
The fan base wants them to lose, though.
I know the fan base wants them to lose to get rid of the coach, but with Kingston's coaching job maybe being on the line, I think they
not maybe. Yeah, it is on the line.
It is on the line. I think because of that, they might be able to pull through and win this. I still think I go NC State, but I would not be shocked at all to see South Carolina pull the upset here. And then if they get out of this, that Athens regional, as we talked about, is not overly strong. So
no.
As long as you can get to Georgia pitching, I think that whoever wins this regional has a really good chance to end up in Omaha.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and this is also kind of a coin flip 50-50 for me. I lean NC State. I've seen both of these teams in person, and I just trust NC State as a whole a little more than I trust South Carolina, just with some of the pitching fiascos and how they blew that lead to LSU in the SEC tournament, that 8-0 lead, and the fact that the fans want the coach fired. I think all that is going to set up a perfect situation for NC State. I think NC State moves on here as well. Back out west, the Santa Barbara Regional, hosted by UC Santa Barbara, of course. You've got Fresno State as the 4, and then San Diego and Oregon as the 3. Going to be honest, I know a total of zilch about any of these 4 teams.
Yeah, I'm not overly versed.
So I'm going to throw a dart at the board, and I'm going to say San Diego. Congrats on your regional win.
Yeah. I'm just going to go with UCSB. I think that I'm going to pick in the 1 seed is really what I'm doing here. I think this is really the who wants to get smacked by Texas A&M sweepstakes here, because the winner of this regional, that's who they end up facing. So I think that A&M waxes whoever comes out of this, but I'm going to go UCSB. Then down to...
I think you like this regional.
The Stillwater Regional, hosted by Oklahoma State.
Paired up with the Clemson Regional.
Nebraska, Niagara, and the Florida Gators, who made a lot of people mad by making the tournament at 28-27. And it's really all down to RPI with this Florida team, strength of schedule. The teams they beat are good. They've lost a lot of bad midweek games as well. They're such an up-and-down team. The lineup can go from College World Series potential to holy cow, what are we even doing? The pitching can be mediocre, and it can be send all of these guys to high school teams to ride the bench. It's complete up and down. You don't know what you're going to get, but Florida comes in, I would say they come in hot, but you drop the first game of the SEC tournament to Vandy to be immediately eliminated. So I'm worried about that as well. I think they can get it done in this regional. I
Too much yapping for me. Give me the Cornhuskers of Nebraska.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. This is really the me versus you whole side of the bracket here, with Florida taking on Nebraska first, then maybe getting to Clemson if they manage to win. But I think what we can both agree on is Oklahoma State is not making it out of their own regional.
Correct. I think I've come to that conclusion as well. I think it's a 50-50. I'll just say this. Whoever wins the Nebraska-Florida game on Friday is coming out of the regional. That's what I'm going to go with.
I can agree with that.
Because if you lose game one, it's very statistically improbable.
You are toast.
Yeah, you're pretty much toast. You're very statistically improbable to get out of the regional. We've just seen that over the past decade or so. So I think that's going to be a really, really big game. And I don't think as many people nationally are taking Nebraska and Florida as seriously as I think they should be taken.
Well, also Nebraska, who takes Big Ten baseball seriously?
They've had a good season, though.
They have, and I'm not saying that as a knock on Nebraska. I'm saying that as when you talk about
That's
baseball,
fair.
It's really SEC, ACC most of the time. So it's hard for a team like that out of the Big Ten to get respect a lot of the time, but I definitely think they deserve it. Then the Tallahassee, guys, it's 1 a.m.
Another weak regional, in my opinion.
The Tallahassee regional hosted by Florida State, the number 8 overall seed. They have Alabama, Stetson, and UCF as the 2, 4, and 3. And
I really wish I had a button that would play the chop right now. That'd be really cool.
That would be cool. But
give me the.
I definitely agree.
Not the Tar Heels, the Seminoles.
Florida State gets this done.
That's Florida State's mascot.
Gets this done pretty easily.
Yes.
Then finally, the Tucson regional.
It's Dallas Baptist. It's always been Dallas Baptist.
Arizona somehow conned their way into hosting a regional.
What in the world? What? How?
I don't know, but
okay.
This is Dallas Baptist.
Yes,
this is Dallas Baptist.
Definitely regional. Dallas Baptist. Now let's quickly give me your Omaha 8.
Ooh. I'm gonna go Tennessee, for sure. Tennessee A&M.
For sure.
I like Tennessee.
Give me Wake Forest, man.
Oh, that's right. I forgot super regionals are a thing. Oh, it's so late. Wake Forest.
So okay. Yeah. So first.
Yes, Wake Forest.
Okay, Wake Forest.
Wake Forest.
And then Kentucky's is paired up with Corvallis.
So I'm taking Oregon State out of that pool. Give me Oregon State to Omaha.
I'll take Indiana State there.
Then now it's the A&M. So give me A&M over anyone from that Santa Barbara regional.
Yeah, I agree there.
Then Chapel Hill versus the Tucson regional.
Chapel Hill, we both have LSU coming out.
I think LSU beats Dallas Baptist.
Okay.
Then we have the Virginia regional versus the Arkansas regional. I think that's Arkansas. I think Arkansas goes to Omaha for sure.
I'm there. I'm with you there.
I would send Clemson to Omaha out of that pool.
Please happen. I'm begging.
Stillwater regional.
Please.
Think any team coming out of the Stillwater regional is just not good enough to beat Clemson in a super regional. Then the Georgia.
Your words to God's ears, brother.
Yes, the Georgia and Raleigh regionals. I'm going to send NC State to Omaha. I'm going to send
Pac-9. I'm with you there. I'm actually agreeing with a lot of these picks, so shout out.
Then the Tallahassee regional and the Norman, Oklahoma regional, I'm sending Duke to Omaha out of that pool, actually. I think they upset Florida State.
They did so in the ACC tournament. I could definitely see it happening again. So that leaves us with Wake Forest.
Yes.
I have
Indiana State.
I have Indiana State.
I have Oregon State.
Texas A&M for me, for both of us. LSU.
Yes, LSU.
Arkansas, Clemson. That's 6.
NC State.
And Duke.
Yeah.
So there's your Omaha 8.
There's your Omaha 8. And now, with everything done, it's time for us to go to bed. Thank you for tuning into SM Sports Radio. By far the most chaotic episode we've had so far.
So scuffed.
Yeah. We made it through. We managed to talk about sports a little bit in there, somewhere between tripping over our voices quite a few times. But for those of you that have made it to the end, thank you for tuning in. Glad you listened to us talk about college baseball for a little bit as well. And we will see you guys next week, hopefully not at midnight.